Hey guys, and welcome to Antimatter Chemistry Progression Log 7. I know this is fairly early. I didn't sleep last night very well, so instead of trying to lay in bed for another 4 hours, I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll get up. I got these new energy drinks from V8. They're actually pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, I get to get some, did manage to get some stuff done this week. Not as much as I expected. I was doing a bunch of other things, or I was doing some other things. But that's not to say I didn't get nothing done at all. We're gonna go ahead and start over here with the reactors. As in, yeah, reactors plural. I built the second one. I built that one last night or the night before. And it runs off LEU 233 fuel, which is part of the Golden Path. You get 233 from byproducts of recycling depleted TBU fuel. It does produce a little bit. I think it produces about the same amount of power as the other one. I don't really keep it around for power. Uh, it's nice to have. But we weren't really even getting. I think we were using it anywhere from a third to half of the first reactor. I mostly just wanted to build this so I could expand a lot of systems throughout the base without having to worry about it, as well as getting some Americium and stuff, which is some pretty useful elements. And we can also continue down that golden path, which I think the next one up would be plutonium fuel. I don't know. I don't know what the third reactor will be. We will need more reactors as time goes on. The last AMC run I played, we had about 750,000 RF per tick and worth of production, give or take. So we only have about 60K right now, so I expect that we'll have lots more, especially once I start expanding DMLs more significantly. Which I guess we'll go ahead and start with, we'll go to next. As I did last night, or not, sorry, not last, or this week, I did manage to get to DML. Um, did I move these portals over this last week? No, I don't think so. I think these have been here for a week. Um, the week has kind of blurred together, so I'm struggling to remember exactly what I did over the last week, but I know I did DML. I did actually end up moving polymer clay over here. I felt like it was fitting better over there, and I wanted to put some more stuff over here. We also have all these new isotopes and stuff. Very fancy. We have some americium, which we can always break that down for. We can turn this stuff into the actual stuff or the alchemistry americium, so we can turn that into the ingot form for end rods if I actually want to do quantum core, which is actually up in the air at this point. I did actually get well, actually, I'll go ahead and talk about that in a few minutes. But for now, we do have DML over here. I put the loop fabricators where the polymer clay was originally. We also have the liquefier set up over here too. So we still have one more shack area to use. That might get used for more simulators. We'll have to see. We still have the first four that we had originally, but we also have Enderman, Ender Dragon, Wither Skeleton, and we have more blazes back here. I was using tons and tons of blazes. This was for blaze rods. As we chewed through for all like the pyrotheum and stuff that we were using for ore processing, we chewed through all of the blaze powder that we had. We were making through the chemical combiners as we ate all of the germanium, and that was a pretty big bottleneck. We're fine now, because I stopped making blaze powder through uh, the uh, the chemical combiner, and now we make blaze rods from the blaze simulators, and then just grind that down in a manufactory into powder. So pretty good, pretty cheap, and we get lots of it. So we also make sulfur this way too, as we were eating lots and lots of sulfur, which was actually a pretty big surprise because we get sulfur from a lot of different things. But yeah, so we're good on that. We also have draconium dust too. This is I had to farm ender dragons for like an hour. That was a little bit annoying. I'm not gonna lie. But now that we have draconium, we can actually start getting. We're pretty into the late game at this stage, so we're pretty far along. I know I've just been really kind of ignoring the quests because I've played this pack so much and I don't really need the quests anymore. After a certain once you unlock everything, like after chapter 4, there's not really anything that gets gated anymore by recipes, so after that, you don't really have to worry about quests. So eventually we'll have to start working and getting ourselves into like draconic evolution for the fusion crafting and stuff. as we will need that to get into late game. But for now, we should be fine. Especially we can, once we start getting into like the alchemistry fusion fission plants, we'll be in a really good position to start setting up some stuff for singularities. So we're not too far away from that, but we still do have lots of infrastructure we have to build ahead of time. Unlike last time, I spent a lot of time waiting on wither or not sorry nether stars. Uh, let's see, singularity. There was the nether star singularity, and we needed 42 of these things, and I spent so much time waiting on nether stars from loot fabricators. Oh wow, that's actually 3 now too. That's crazy. They buffed that. When the last run, it was only 1 to 1, and now it's 1 to 3. I think. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that. Anyway, so I'm gonna set up some withers fairly soon this week and just let them run for a while. As we are gonna, I want to have all those nether stars done ahead of time, more or less, because I really don't want to have to wait on those again. So, um, yeah, but we're doing pretty good. We have our infrastructure is actually really powerful at this stage. We have plenty of power, we have plenty of overhead. We have about 60K worth of, or about like 70K worth of production, and we're only ever using anywhere from 10 to 18,000 of that or so. So I have lots and lots of power to play with, which is very nice. In terms of the third reactor, it probably will be HEU-235. At least eventually we will resort to that. I am starting to think about maybe if I want to build a molten salt reactor, an MSR. Those are really cool, but they're really complex and they're really massive and they're sick as fuck. Like so the molten salt here we do like Fleeb. Uh TBU? Yeah, there we go. So you can turn you make like this molten salt fuel with Fleeb and let's see, how do we make a salt mixer? It's thorium. Uh Here we go. So you have Fleeb salt mixture, and then you have the actual like molten fuel, fluoride fuel, which requires a bunch of fluorine and stuff. And then you can run this liquid fuel in a molten salt fission reactor, and this one does a lot of cool things. So how molten salt reactors work is you feed them liquid fuel and liquid coolant, and then you get hot coolant out. Like let's see, like this stuff, right? So you have hot coolant, and then you run it through heat exchangers, which turns hot coolant back into cold coolant. 100, you get it all back, and it produces a bunch of steam, which you can then run through turbines. And what's really cool about, let's see, so with heat exchangers too, you have to have a bunch of them, not just one, right? So you turn hot coolant into cold coolant, and it will also turn water into high pressure steam, which then you can run through a turbine to turn it into exhaust steam. You can also, so you run it through a turbine to turn it into exhaust steam, and then you can turn this exhaust steam, you can run it through another heat exchanger with more hot coolant to turn it into low pressure steam, which you can then run through the turbine again into low quality steam. You then run this through a condensator to make condensate water, and then you run that through another heat exchanger for preheated water, and then you can run preheated water through the heat exchanger again. And this actually, you want to do the preheated water. Doing this full closed loop cycle, you get a little bit. It's a little bit more efficient. Starting from preheated water rather than starting from regular water, but obviously you have to inject at least a little bit of uh, hot water originally. So, but so you can have this thing really complex. I mean, also you can just dump exhaust steam, and then just continue. And so you can just skip closed loop and just feed it lots and lots of water, which is obviously a solution. I don't know if I were to do an MSR whether I'd want to do the whole closed loop, as that would be. Uh, well, complicated. As well as you have to like balance about how, hot coolants through different thermal or through different heat exchangers and stuff, and you have to make sure you have enough coolant for everything. It could be something really fun to build, but I know that'll take me like 2 weeks at least. So, and I'm not even sure if we'll need that kind of power, but it could just be really cool to build that massive complex. It would be a really large build, which could be a lot of fun, honestly. Like I don't even know where we'd put it. That would be an interesting, probably, hmm. because I don't think it would fit necessarily over here in the main reactor area. If we were to do an MSR, I think I'd want to build it somewhere on its own, just so it'd be in a little bit, because it would be a very unique build, and it would be something we would never build more than one of. Once we were to build the MSR, if we were to build an MSR with a full closed loop cycle, that we would never build another one, and we probably wouldn't have to build another reactor ever, because while they're extremely complex and expensive to build, they are also ridiculously good at making lots of power. So, like, from what I remember, when I built one on my single player world a couple years ago, it produced, I think, like 2 million RF per tick or something. So they produce a lot of power if you build them right, and they're a lot of fun to build. And I wanted to build one last AMC run, and I just never got around to doing that. So I don't know if I'll get around to doing that this time either, but I don't know. If I do want, if that is something to think about, though, it could be a lot of fun to do that. But there's lots of other things I have to do. Again, like modded Minecraft is a very one of the things about doing modded Minecraft tech packs is balancing time. Oh, also, I did this last night. I finally have started moving things up top. I put the terminals and stuff up here. You'll notice that this wasn't the flat cuboid thing I had before. It's actually still there. The raw skystone is still still down here. But once I set it up, I realized it kind of sucked, like a lot. I really hated the way that looked. So to make it better, I just threw some skystone brick on top, and I think it looks fucking fantastic. I just added a little bit more up here, and I think this looks really great. I'm really happy with the way this looks and stuff. Adding a few just some blocks here for a little bit of depth is really really big. Unfortunately, I was looking for if there was like some panels or something, like some like like vertical slabs, and there weren't any, unfortunately. So eventually I just went with this instead of just trying to bring out added some depth with raw skystone, and I think this looks amazing. I'm really really happy with this. So if we come down here, most of this stuff down here has been torn out. I know in the original prog log 0 or whatever, when I showcased this area, the controller was down here. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna put the controller down here now. Technically, we don't need a controller because we have unlimited channels. Though I did just throw one up here anyway. I think what I'm gonna put down here is actually some auto crafting. What's really funny is we're a few hundred hours in at this point, over 220 or 222 hours into the run, and I have literally no auto crafting yet. Mostly because I just really haven't noticed. Like I just keep playing and stuff, and every now and then I have to like craft some stuff or whatever. But I'm so used to both batch crafting and everything is like I'm also used to crafting recipes from Factory. Being like 14 different steps of micro crafting, and because most things are like two and like at most like two steps of crafting, it is like whatever, right? So I haven't really needed auto crafting. Um, we are going to need it at some point, I'm sure. But I'm just not exactly sure how expansive the auto crafting is going to be, especially since I can just put lots and lots of things on passive, and I'm more than willing to just stuff things on passive. If maybe I'll do it for AE components, but a lot of AE components we have on passive through rare like cores. Let's see. So, formation and annihilation cores are on passive, sort of technically from rare chests. It's not really a great source of them. They're pretty slow and pretty rare, but we still have some of them. We have 80. We have over a stack of each one. We actually have two stacks of annihilation cores, for example. For storage components, we also have a few hundred of them as well, also from loot chests, and we don't really use too many of those either. So most of the things we go through are a lot of interfaces, but like we have a ton of interfaces. I made like a stack, and we don't really use that many of them. So even if I had to make a few interfaces, it's like boom, done. And I can just like shift click a stack or whatever. So I find that in a pack like this, a really strong passive base that has lots and lots of things on passive, I should say, is you don't really need auto crafting nearly as bad. If you have the infrastructure for it, especially if you reduce the number of things down to just a couple of like a crafting step or so, like we have all of these things like one if we were to put like annihilation cores on passive or something, that would be fine. And like these cores as well are also cheap. Everything here in these things is on passive, and the same thing goes for the formation cores as well. All of these things are on passive and in large amounts too. So if I ever needed a bunch of formation cores, I could just like order like I didn't even have to order. I could just like shift click like 4 stacks and I would never need them ever again. So um but we will probably want some form of auto crafting, at least for some recipes, though I'm not exactly sure what I'd even put in auto crafting down here. Like, there's not really many recipes that I'd have the need to have the computer do for me, so I don't know. I do know that if I need to put auto crafting, I will probably just throw some molecular assemblers down in here, though I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to be auto crafting with molecular assemblers, is sort of my point. In the last AMC run, I didn't really have too many things on auto crafting. I might put fusion crafting down here, and that legitimately might be like the only thing I put on auto crafting, like straight up. It's just because I really hate doing fusion crafting by hand. So, um, yeah, but that's a question for later. So, I guess we'll go ahead and continue on. The next thing I want to talk about over here is actually ore processing. This week, because we have DML and we went to the end, we also managed to start. We got RF Tools dimensions. So, over here, I built this pyramid for RF Tool stuff, some dimlet. This area over here is like turbo scuffed too. So, I do want to put some more matter transmitters down there. I might use this area as like a central hub for various teleporters throughout the base. I'm still haven't really been worried about that all that too much. I really kind of enjoy wandering around through this base. And I might just put some redstone on my armor so I run even faster. With cobalt, you already have a little bit of extra speed. I think it's like 20% extra speed, yeah, between all of them. So I can throw some redstone on that to get that a little bit higher, and then it'll be extra fast. So I still don't have air affinity either, which is really funny because I really love that enchantment, but I haven't really needed it, especially since we have the quarry now, and now I definitely don't need it. So I don't really know. But because we have just a regular dimlet tab, we can actually hop into it now. So in here was where we did some basic quarrying to help because we needed some dimensional shards to get started with the quarry. And I ran two 512 by 512s over here. This was I actually didn't set up it, I didn't set it up as a clearing one originally, so it replaced everything with dirt. So it's really funny how the whole thing looks like it's made of dirt, like all the mushrooms and trees and stuff. So I could actually, what's really nice about this area, this I guess dimension is that there's a bunch of biomes. We have Mushroom Island. Let's see, actually, so we have Mushroom Island Shore over here. Then we also have a swampland over here. We have a forest over here. I think there's another biome somewhere. Plains, but we already have plains. Maybe over here is another biome. So if I were to want to set up for Magic Snow Globes, set up a quantum quarry with the Magic Snow Globes because you need to hit 7 different biomes. 7 of the following types. Oh, it looks like they don't count mushrooms. So I didn't actually notice that. But I'm sure I can find an ocean or something in this dimension, no problem. So that won't be a problem. So I could set up a quantum quarry, is what I'm saying. I could go to the end and pick up some stuff and craft some things, but I don't really know if I want to set up a quantum quarry because I would like to go talk about ore processing next, and I will share my so the concerns I have with quantum quarry is partially that we don't really have a sustainable rate of ore processing, as we use cinnabar as a catalyst in our ore processing over here. Like, we'll go ahead and talk about this now. So, actually, I rebuilt ore processing this week as well. I moved away from the single diamond chest as a buffer. One for would be for gem types, and one was been for ingot types. But instead, now we just have a nice little a subnet right here. And you notice we have lots of iron ore. And the reason why I'm not processing these 6 ores is because we get these ingots from other sources. We get them from chemical combiners, like, copper we get. Let's see, so copper, lithium, and magnesium come from salts, and then iron, tin, and gold come from cobblestone and other kinds of stone too. So we don't need to process those ores, and the reason why I'm not processing them, at least right now, is so we use cinnabar as a catalyst, and cinnabar is made from mercury sulfide, 8 for 1. Mercury sulfide is then made from red dye, and we make red dye by turning beetroots into red dye and then dissolving them. So it takes two beetroots for one cinnabar. And it looks like we really out of. Yep, we're out of beetroots now, and that's the problem. Is this thing consumes beetroots, and I should say cinnabar, faster than we can actually make beetroots with. And that's really kind of bad, especially for a quantum quarry that would endlessly produce ore. Right now, with our tools builder quarry, we can rely on that it'll grind up a bunch of, it'll pull up a ton of ore way faster than we can process it with our beetroots or whatever, and then it'll be done, and then it'll sit and do nothing, and ore processing will catch up on its own over time. But with a quantum quarry, we can't rely on that. I don't know how fast they produce ore, so it's possible that we'd be fine right now with just running one. But I'm not really sure if we need to either, because this does pull out a lot of ore. Like, if we take a look at our ingots, we are exceptionally rich. 185,000 lead, 170k silver, 139k boron, 75k uranium, 53k thorium. So, we're exceptionally wealthy right now. And we don't need to process these other ingots, like I mentioned, like lithium and stuff, because as well, also platinum. But platinum ore you don't get, and platinum comes from a byproduct of nickel right now. At least if you want platinum ore, you have to mine that with laser drills. But we also have obviously plenty of platinum ingots, uh, and it also does come from chemical combiners. Um, so yeah, we have lots and lots of ore, and we're exceptionally wealthy. And I'm not really sure if I need to spend the time to get a quantum quarry. Uh, like I said, I'm not sure if I run a quantum quarry, I might need to do some significant work in the farms, rather than just being able to rely on the thing turning off and letting ore catch up over time. And if I were to actually change some farms around, the plan would be to remove the tree farm, just rip it out entirely, as we don't really need it at this stage anymore. Like, we'll come over here and take a look. We have 17 million logs, right? And 50k apples, all these. We have tons and tons of stuff. Things that we don't really need to farm anymore. So if I were to pull trees out, we'd be fine. It wouldn't be a problem. So the plan would be to rip out the tree farm and swap it for another farm that's only doing beetroots. Right now, this thing is doing one corner of carrots. We have one section of carrots, one section of netherworts, and everything else is beetroot. If I were to swap the tree farm out, it would be only for beetroots, and I think that would help a lot. It obviously would around double our production of beetroots, so that would be pretty good. I'm still not entirely sure that would be enough. We do go through a lot of it. Technically, you can double the production of beetroots to rose red dye through a quern, but these are apparently manual labor only, and I'm not exactly sure they can be automated in any practical fashion. It's possible I could try and use something like a mechanical user, but I haven't checked one yet, and I'm not exactly sure if it's worth it. If I do actually need more red dye really, really badly, maybe I could take a look at that. But yeah, but you can't use beetroots in a pulverizer like you can with flowers and stuff. Beetroot only turns into dye through a crafting table. There's no and the corn, I guess. So there's not really another option, and dissolving the beetroot directly doesn't give you anything. So, or it doesn't give you what we want anyway. So. I'm not really exactly sure going forward about how I'm gonna, fiddle with the farms. I could, like I said, I could swap out the tree farm. It would be fine. Another thing I want to do over here is I'm actually thinking about ripping out the dissolvers here. I've already started moving. I have the dissolver pyramids, pillars now, and I had built this dissolver area before I had that area, significantly before I had it, and I did need, the cellulose and the sucrose at the time. So, but now that I've started moving some stuff over to the dissolver pyramids, I was thinking about maybe moving sucrose and cellulose, just doing what's over here in the dissolver pyramids, basically. And then I would put phytogrow. I put the phytogenic insulators here, And if necessary, if I actually, for some godforsaken reason, needed more logs, let's see, phytogenic insulator, we could make trees and stuff. We can make some logs that way if we had to. We are not going to use 17 million for anything. That's a lot of logs. But we could also grow things like flowers over here. I don't know if it'd be worth growing things like beetroots, for example. It maybe I don't really know. I think it'd be better just to do replace the trees with the beetroot farm, and then but what I would grow here would be things like certain flowers, like sunflowers, for example, would be because sunflowers would be like iodine for we're gonna need iodine, right? We need iodine for one of the singularities, and iodine's only source other than either doing fission fusion plants is in antimatter, which we could do, is lead iodine, which comes from yellow dye. And the easiest way for that is just to grind up, yellow dye for that, which comes from sunflowers. And we can make those in a phytogenic insulator, so we could do, yellow dye that way for iodine. So phytogenic insulators will be useful at some point for some stuff. We have more flowers there. Maybe like orange or something like that, but I don't really. Once we have yellow dye and red dye, we'll be fine on that. Um, so we have options. So my whole point here is I would want to put phytogenic insulators here in the farm area, which would make more sense. And I could rip out these dissolvers and put them somewhere else where I already have lots of dissolvers. So that's something I think I want to go ahead and do at some point. This sludge boiler would just get moved over right here. I put this here originally because I thought that I might need more than one, and we just don't. We don't get that much sludge from the farm, and this thing really isn't that is pretty fast too. So I'm not convinced that we'd need more than one. Look at that. This one is not running. It still has tons and tons of overhead on it, so we'd be fine on that. So that would just get moved over here, and we'd have plenty of room for all the phytogenic insulators we would ever need. So it would definitely fit over here in theming. But that's a problem for later, really. It's sort of on the back burner right now because I'm not even sure if I need that many beetroots. It's possible the quantum quarry is slow enough that the trickle of ores it would produce would be covered by our current cinnabar production. I'm not really convinced about that, honestly. Like I said, our cinnabar production is pretty slow. Um, but the RF Tools quarry does pull out a truly ludicrous amount of ore at a truly insane rate. So, especially since I'm running them at max size 512 by 512, they it really I don't really need to move them out that often. I move them. We only have one, and I move it about once a day or so. But I'm not really sure if I need to move it anytime soon either because we're kind of wealthy at this stage. So, as for these ores that we're not really processing at the moment, I still do plan to process them. The current idea is to process them either in just a regular furnace with an anodizer, so we do get a little bit of ore doubling there, but in a way that doesn't consume a catalyst, as that is why I am pulling these things out because cinnabar is very limited. So I think that's probably about it for today. I know this one was actually pretty early. Like I said, I didn't sleep well last night, and I just kind of gave up around like 5 a.m. So it is what it is. But I guess actually, I think I might want to talk about what's going to be going forward. So I mentioned about the fusion fission plants, and that's a pretty big stage in antimatter chemistry. That's when you can really start making a lot of the higher end elements and stuff that you need for the singularities. Like if we take a look at the singularities, we have lots and lots of different things here. And a lot of these things don't really have too many good sources, like neon, for example, comes from lime antimatter or neon lights. And neon lights you either have to make with neon or we get with loot crates. So we do have a small amount of neon, not anywhere near enough for the pack though. Um, we're gonna need neon, right? So we can get this by splitting things like potassium or calcium, which we have plenty of. We also are gonna need things like gallium is another important thing here. And this we could get this from a cobblestone, regular default cobblestone dissolver, but it's a really dog shit chance. So I'm not exactly too sure about how it would probably fuse or fission that. So. Getting fusion or fission plants, like I said, is a really big milestone, but they're also pretty power hungry, and we do need a lot of them. Like, let's see, 3,000 FE a tick for the fission one, and I think the fusion one's the same. I think fusion's also 3k each. Yeah. So they're both 3k each. So even right now with our significant power overhead and how many we'd need, it would be quite an extensive project to make some of those things. So we, like I said, we are going to see some pretty big base expansion in the near future. And where I'd put them, I'm still not exactly sure. I know that I'm not even sure how I want to build them into the base either, but I do know that's going to be a really fun build. I don't know if they'd fit as a pyramid very well. I think in order to fit them in, it'd have to be a really massive one and it would be pretty monolithic. And I don't think that would look particularly great. I mean, it might be okay, but I had some ideas. Maybe something like I was actually thinking about earlier this morning as I was getting ready to start recording, is I might make something sort of in this style for the fusion fission plants, where they're not shacks, but they're not pyramids either. They're basically a bespoke structure that was designed for whatever setup they were looking at what they were for, right? Like these ones are hiding all the evaporation things down there. And that could be, I have some ideas for that. I think that could look really cool, especially if I were to build some nice terrain around them and do some cool terraforming. They could look like a field of uh, maybe like fancy statues or something like that, or like tiny, like itty bitty micro pyramids and huge fields of them. That could look really sick too. So, we still have lots of cool things to do going forward. And I'm really happy the way this base has been turning out. I still need to do a little bit more decoration over here, especially for the dimlet area. Obviously, that has no decoration in it. I didn't really feel like doing any decoration and terrain work this week, especially since I built basically two new areas by scratch the week before. But this upcoming week, I think I'm ready for some new stuff. I'm ready for some more decoration. I especially, like I mentioned last week, I do want to spend some more time over here, thickening and out this forest and making it a little bit denser. I also have some things, some ideas about just building some cool little structures in like the jungle area that aren't really connected to anything and aren't really practical for any reason, don't really, wouldn't really have anything in them, just for, to build into like the ancient jungle complex style aesthetic that I have going on over here. I think that'd be really cool. I've been watching Indiana Jones movies with my friends the last couple of weeks, so I'm a little bit inspired for something like that. But it's the base is going turning out really really well. I'm really happy the way it's going. Especially, I still need to do some more ideas over here for the reactor thing as well. This is sort of where I'm also taking inspiration for the fusion fission plants. This sort of style, maybe where they either sunken down in something or built in like special arrays. So I still have lots of cool things to do. I hope you guys. So I guess I guess we'll go ahead and call it there. I didn't think deeply enough this week to bring any interesting questions, philosophy questions to the table. Uh, sorry. No philosophy this week. Come maybe next week. We'll have to see. I hope you guys have had a good week. My week's been pretty good. I've been having a lot of fun doing a lot of things, keeping myself busy, while I look for a job, which is blech, right? So I hope you guys have had a good week. I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and I will see you all again next week.